Welcome back, guys, to another episode of Business from the Bass Boat Podcast. I am your host, Adam Deacon. And guys, today, before we get into the show, got a couple of announcements here. I guess number one, I have a new email for the podcast. So if anyone is interested in reaching out to the podcast directly, it's businessfromthebassboat@gmail.com. That's number one. Another good way to get a hold of me would be through Instagram direct messenger, and then also on Facebook Messenger. I'll check that every once in a while too. But the Instagram page is a great way to follow along and see what episodes are coming up and what's kind of in the works with the podcast. And lastly, guys, we are launching on YouTube here to have live, or I guess kind of live excerpts and that sort of a thing. We're recording these podcasts now. So, one other thing, Serious Angler podcast, guys, great podcast there. They have a fantasy league, and I am on their show before every elite event. The week before every elite event this year, we are doing fantasy picks. We've got kind of a minor bet going with them. So hoping we can do well there. So for those of you that are, I don't know, fishing freaks like I am, that follow the fantasy fishing, all that kind of stuff, follow in with those shows, check those shows out. And if you do fantasy fishing, we'll kind of have insight there. So that's it on news and information. And so, guys, we'll kind of get into the show here. This week, we are interviewing ALX Rods. That is a crazy name to pronounce, but I think I just nailed it. I don't really know. But anyways, guys, he is the founder of ALX Rods. He reached out to me and said, "Hey, man, like the podcast, would love to share kind of my story and ALX Rods." And so that's incredible. And so we will go ahead and bring Alex in. Let's see if I can do this. This is all new. Alex, how's it going, man?
Hey, what's going on, Adam?
Oh, man. Dude, well, I'm glad we kind of got this all figured out. We've had some technical difficulties, both of us here, but
I was going to say on both ends.
Exactly, man. So, dude, you are in Aiken, South Carolina, correct?
That's correct. Yep, that's correct. We are in Aiken, South Carolina, and that's where we build all of our fishing rods.
Very cool. That's incredible. Are you guys getting any of this Arctic blast that's all over the rest of the country?
A little bit. Actually, I can't say that today it was that way. It was, I actually snuck out for a little bit this afternoon and enjoyed it, enjoyed the 67, 68 degree weather that we were having. So it was really nice to drive down the road with truck window down.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible, man.
Yeah, spring fever kicked in.
Yeah, I bet. So what major fisheries, tournament fisheries, that kind of a thing are around you?
Oh, wow, man. We're absolutely loaded down here. So, you know, and Aiken, unfortunately, is not close to water. However, we are, how you want to say, equidistant from lots of fisheries. So we've got Clark's Hill is an hour away. Lake Murray in Columbia, South Carolina is an hour away. We've got Santee Cooper Lakes about an hour and a half from us. We've got Lake Oconee over into Georgia is a couple hours. Lake Hartwell's a couple hours. Lake Wiley's a couple hours. Wow. Yeah, I mean, you got Keel, you got the whole Savannah River chain, which is, you know, Clark's Hill, Russell, Hartwell, Kiowee, Jocassee. I mean, I could beat over to Lanier in about 2 hours, two and a half hours. So, I mean, we're just absolutely stacked. I can be down to Eufaula in 5 hours. So, I mean, it's not that far to get to any super quality. And there's 2 or 3 more fisheries that the big tournaments don't really hit. Watery can be really strong. Greenwood can be really strong. You just don't hear about those because the big tournaments tend not to go to those, you know, to go to those bodies. So
yeah, you're around some serious, and you're around all the herring lakes.
Oh yeah,
that part of the country. But
oh yeah,
it's always been interesting to me, and it's a money thing in my opinion. But right, tours go to consistently the same place. Like Hartwell is always hit. Gunnersville's always hit. Those kinds of places. But it's always interesting to me to hear about those kind of other lakes that are big enough a lot of the times that have quality fishing, and then you just don't hear about them because they're not hit.
Oh, like perfect example. I mean, Clark's Hill gets a tournament every so often. Hartwell gets overloaded with tournaments. You know, that whole Anderson Convention Bureau with Neil Paul and those guys up there. I mean, they do a wonderful job bringing tournaments in and getting lots of activity. They've developed great facilities and stuff. But the jewel in there that nobody ever goes to is Lake Russell. You don't hear about it, and it is a phenomenal lake. I mean, it is just incredible, and it doesn't get a lot of pressure at all. It's sandwiched right between Clarks Hill and Hartwell. It never fluctuates, but like a foot in water level because it's a conservation type lake.
Yeah.
And it is loaded with quality spotted bass. And the largemouth are kind of gone out of there, but the spotted bass fishery is incredible. And you know, at certain times of the year, I mean, it's a 45 fish a day lake. I mean, it's an incredible place to go and just hammer the spots. So
that's a blast. Really
yeah.
cool. Those spotted bass to me are some of the most aggressive, most fun fish to catch.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. I grew up down in Charleston, South Carolina, and I fished the Cooper River system.
Okay.
Yeah, so I grew up fishing the rice fields and all of that. I fished tidal. We used to go up to the lake a little bit, but when you're 15 minutes from the boat landing on the Cooper River, it's kind of hard to drive 45 minutes up to the lake, you know?
Yeah.
And we would catch some saltwater, we'd catch some, but I always preferred to freshwater fish. And when I moved up here for a previous life, my first trip to Lake Russell, I caught a 4. I think it was a little over 4. It was about a 4 1/4 pound spot, and I thought I had this monster fish. I didn't know what I had gotten into, and that thing about wore me out. And first thing I know, I pull it up, and I'm like, "What is this?" Nobody had told me about spotted bass. I knew nothing about them. You know, this is 20 years ago, and you know, I was just like, "Oh, whatever." Chunked it back in. Now I would have been like, "Oh man, I got to take pictures of this thing." You know,
it's a big spot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, kind of your background, you're starting there, but let's get right into it.
Sure.
So you're originally kind of off the air. We spoke. You came from the corporate world and decided to make a rod company. Now, where did that all begin? You know, in the fishing industry, what kind of made you want to work your way into the outdoor industry in some way or another?
You know, it's funny, Adam, because I remember being a kid thinking that I was going to grow up to be a guide, right? And this was because I'd hop on my bicycle with a brim buster and go down to the local pond catching brim all afternoon. You know, I mean, but I was going to be a guide. That's what I was going to do when I was growing up. And you know, I don't know that I ever really dreamed of being a pro fisherman, but I always wanted to guide. I've always had a desire to help other people. There's always been something in me that's kind of always, and it's probably, I've had a really kind of diverse background because my degree in college is actually in education, and I was a teacher for a little bit.
Very cool.
Yeah, and then migrated into the corporate world. But you know, so I always had wanted to do that, and then I left fishing for a long time when I moved up here to Aiken, just because there wasn't any close water, and I actually got into competitive shooting real heavy, and with
like shotgun shooting.
Yeah, I shot trap and traveled all over shooting trap, and that was really before sporting clays had really gotten big. Yeah. And I did a lot of that and kind of started my own little business with it, and kind of really enjoyed having my own little business related to shooting. And then from there, I got back into fishing and started fishing. Joined a club here over in Augusta, Georgia, which is the closest big city to us. And started fishing again. Went co-angler out of the back of the boat before I bought my own boat. Well, all my fishing gear was old at that point. You know, it was all 6, 7, 8 years old, and I needed some new stuff. And I started tinkering with learning to build fishing rods. And you know, out of the first 10 rods that I built myself, I think I sold 6 or 7 of them to other guys in the club and stuff. And you know, it just kind of was downhill from there. You know, that was back around 2007. And so from there, it just slowly started growing more and more. And it was like, you know, I think there might be something to this. Let's just see where it goes.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So, and you know, similar to kind of how a lot of these stories start, right? It sounds like from the beginning, even with when you were competitively shooting, you felt like you needed to create a business. You wanted to create something. And that's kind of a trend I'm seeing among a lot of the people I'm interviewing, is they already had a couple of businesses that may have failed, or they didn't want to continue growing. You know, it seems like that's a common trait among some of these people in the industry. That's incredible.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's that, you know, it's like I laugh and say that, you know, a lot of people that are in the fishing business as a whole, a lot of them are ex-athletes, and they're looking for something to compete at. They may not love fishing as much as they love competing. and a lot of our customers are that way. I mean, it's that, they all played, a lot of them, I'm not going to say all, but a lot of them played sports in school and as a kid, and they're still looking for that way to compete, that way to get out there and, you know what, just, throw $20 on the tailgate and let's see who can get it when we come back, and,
Oh yeah.
and it may be something as simple as that, or different things. And we have a lot of customers, don't get me wrong, that just fun fish too, but definitely that tournament scene drives the industry as a whole. It's just like golfing or tennis or any other sport. The push to become better drives the innovation. It drives the changes. It drives everything else. So, but yeah, I agree. Everybody that I know of that's in the industry, for the most part, that owns their own business, has always pushed in that kind of direction.
Yeah.
Just something in people,
Yeah, exactly. And I like your point about kind of a lot of these pro fishermen were, even on the pro side, were competitive athletes, right? You look at like Cherry, right?
Yep.
Was a time baseball player. Jason Christie played basketball in college. Like you see a lot of guys like that. And then now, if you're looking at, I mean, I geek out with all this stuff, right? But like if you look at like the opens series this year, we've got Brian, I think it's Robeson, or the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, pro football player.
Yep. And then you have there's a hockey player, ex Chicago Blackhawks player.
Oh wow, okay.
Opens as well. I heard this was on Luke Duncan's
podcast.
And then you look at, it's just another competitive outlet.
Yeah. Well, in a tournament angler, I mean, you got to think about it, man. I mean, you're going out there as a whole. You've got to have a lot of I'm not going to say ego. Ego isn't really the right word, but you got to have a pretty high self-esteem to go out there and throw that kind of money on the table. And you're going against fish, and it's truly you against the fish. It's not you against me, against you, against Joe, against Jeff. I mean, it's me against those fish, because I could make one decision that just blows it all.
Yep.
And what they did over there has nothing to do with what I do in my boat, and you gotta have a lot of, you gotta have a lot, be real headstrong, and you've got to have a lot of grit to be able to go through and do something. I mean, tournament anglers as a whole, the one thing that my wife works for the business, and she had not been exposed to a lot of the anglers, and she said y'all have got to be the most anal group of people I've ever seen in your life. And I'm like, oh yeah. I said, because you got to know where this pack of worms is. Everything is just so. And as a whole, if you think about it, there aren't many tournament anglers that are just kind of a mess. Everybody's pretty organized and very, very, everything is just so.
Yeah. My girlfriend makes fun of me because the boat and my tackle is probably the most organized part of my life. It's extremely organized, and everything else, it's like, I figure it out. But
that's right.
With fishing tackle, man, that's exactly right, because it costs you time and you want to know exactly what you have, where it is. So
that's right.
Right. So getting back into kind of when you left the corporate world,
sure.
How was that transition? When were you prepared that you could do this full time?
Wow, that's an interesting one. So the one thing I will tell everybody is don't burn the candle at two ends. Don't burn both ends of the candle too much, however the expression goes. Because I probably went a little too long. And part of that was because I was the primary wage earner for our family. My wife worked for a local jewelry store, and had decent benefits, decent pay and everything. But, I had a very good job. I worked for a major power company, and, all the benefits and everything that goes along with that, great 401k, all of that good stuff. So, I was working there during the day, and I was a project manager. And then I was also then I merged into a commercial sales type role, managing a team of 15 people selling natural gas. So it was kind of an interesting quandary to go from that all day to then at night I was busy selling fishing rods and making fishing rods out of the side of the house. So I was working a lot of 12, 15, 16, 17-hour days. Saturday, Sunday, I'll be honest with you, man, my fishing went from fishing some tournaments and doing stuff to I had no time to fish whatsoever because my eye was on the business. I had Saturdays and Sundays to build rods, and, I had a daughter, had to go to ball games. She plays sports. She plays softball, volleyball, and growing up, she played other sports as well. And she, I mean, it was, during the week I had to make time for that stuff. So Saturdays and Sundays, fishing just had to go because my eye was on doing that. And, it has gotten me where we are today, and it was definitely bootstrapped. And the one thing that I like to say is, we'll have questions is I've never taken a dime to finance our business. It's all been grown. It's all been done from internal. I think I gave myself a $10,000 loan in like 2008 or 2009, and I paid myself back by the end of that year. So, and that was purely, actually, I'm sorry, it was a little bit later. It was when we made our first big purchase of parts. We made a very, very large purchase of parts for reel seats, guides, different things all at one time to get a better pricing structure. Yeah. And that was the only time I've ever borrowed money for our business. Knock on wood to this point. So, so that's but a lot of bootstrapping, and it's just like people say. I mean, they don't see the day in the life of an entrepreneur is like this. This is this. It's all over the place. So it's stressful. Be careful what you ask for.
That's exactly right, and I think that's important to let people know too, because everyone wants their own business. Everyone wants to do this kind of stuff, but there's definitely some negatives that go along with all of it.
Yeah, there's definitely a grind, and you've got to balance it. And there's obviously some guys in the in that whole entrepreneur space that I really follow, and I take some I listen to a lot and really try to get some guidance, and they have some levity to it, because at the end of the day, you've got to remember. I mean, you got to grind it out. It's like I tell my employees, at the end of the day, I'm ultimately responsible for every single thing that comes out of this shop. You may work on it, but I'm responsible for it. And and when something goes wrong, I take it personally. I mean, it's my name essentially. I mean, ALX is just short for Alex. I mean, in all reality, that's where it came from. I just took the E out and it sounded cool. I mean, and but that's essentially my name on every rod. So when we have a problem, it's me. And I take that personally. So.
Very good. Yeah, it's a good mindset to have. And ALX, that was actually I got my note sheet in front of me. I was going to ask you if that was why it was ALX Rods. I was like,
it is
close to your name.
That's it. Yeah, a bunch of I've got a buddy of mine that his favorite joke is that it went to the print shop and they made a typo, and we ended up with the rod name. And I'm like, yeah, man, you got to quit telling people that.
I like it. I like it though. It's short. It's cool lettering. Cool letters. And then I don't know. It looks good on the side of Jake Whitaker's boat. So
there you go. Oh yeah, Jake's an awesome guy. In fact, he just stopped by the shop on last Friday with his new wrap. So he is, Jake's got a reputation for camo, and the boat is camo this year. So he's going full tilt.
Wow. Like as in like real, like regular mossy oak, like real camouflage.
Oh yeah, no, just stay tuned. You'll have to look, man. I'm not gonna burst his bubble, but he went full tilt camo this year.
Wow, that's crazy, man.
Well, yeah, it looks good though.
That'd be cool. Because I think why some of those guys are kind of not showing off their wraps is Bassmasters doing that day in between their practice to take pictures of those rigs. So.
Correct. Yeah, and they'll do the big reveals and all that good stuff on Bassmaster and all that. So they do that every year.
Gotcha. That'll be really neat. Well, I'm excited to look at that. I'll look into that for sure.
Yeah.
So you're building ALX rods. This is all taking place. I'm assuming that in the beginning, was it the majority of a Southeast presence as far as where the rods were, very oriented towards that?
So kind of like it's I've always thought that this was the interesting part to me was I remember, I would build rods, and a lot of my rods, for the first, like I said, we started in 2007. So next year's our 15th year anniversary of ALX Rods. And we didn't start our first official rod series per se until about 2012. Up until that point, we were really heavy. Pretty much just I was a custom rod builder. I mean, that's really all it was. And I mean, not to discount that in any way, because I learned a massive amount. And actually, our first production line of rods, which is the Zolo series, which is our flagship today. Mm-hmm. It all came from what I think at the time, our 12 most requested custom rods were, with links and actions and powers. And that's how I developed that first rod series was I just took those, 5-6 years worth of custom rod builds and kind of condensed all that down and looked at all my build sheets and everything that I'd been building and said, you know, this is what the rod series should be, because for the most part, this is what guys are looking for. These are the things that people are that our customers are asking for. And you know, it's even today we still follow that. That's how we bring in new rods and new series, is based on what people are asking for. Yeah. It's 100% customer driven. But I really knew that the rods were starting to take a priority for me and the business as a whole. And I had truly found a passion in rod building when I went to a tournament up on Hartwell and I cashed like a 4th place check. And I came home, and Jennifer, my wife, looked at me and said, "What's wrong with you? Why you bummed out? You cashed a check. You should be happy." And I looked at her and I said, "I ain't selling your rods today." And she kind of looked at me funny. And when I said that, I was just like, you know, I realized what had happened was I was so in the zone, worried about fishing, that I didn't try to promote the rods at the landing. I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I was focused on fishing. Yeah. And that's when I realized, I was like, you know what? I think fishing rods have taken a priority for me now. Yeah. and that's when it just kind of, from at that point, it kind of took off.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I mean, that's listening to yourself, right? I think people are going to have different drivers at every point. I mean, you look at someone like KVD right now, at the point of where he's at in his career, there was a time where that guy was obsessed with fishing. Oh, right? Yeah. And that's all. And he's still, don't get me wrong, he's still extremely competitive, phenomenal guy. But like, he, in my opinion, is such a busy guy on the business side that it's gonna take a toll on his fishing long term. You know, eventually, like that is what's gonna happen. And in a situation like that, you realized, look, this is where my passion is. Don't get me wrong, you're still very passionate about fishing, but my passion is selling the rods. And that's, you know, you're at a tournament, you take 4th, and you're mad about it, not because of the tournament finish, but because you didn't talk to anyone at the ramp, because that's what you do. Well,
and the great thing is it's like I tell people, I live vicariously through them. I mean, I will sit and talk fishing all day with anybody, because I mean, the best thing in the world, man, is when we get those pictures in from our customers and they're like, look at this fish I caught, you know, and they're like, you know, hey man, I think for me, I realized too what a value and what I got back from building and selling rods. When I had a customer, he fished Lake Greenwood. I don't remember his name now, but I remember he fished Lake Greenwood. It was an older gentleman, and he fished a Carolina rig a lot. And he came to me and he said, you know, he goes, I'm having a lot of problems. He said, I would do a lot better in my tournaments if I would not kill fish. And I'm like, well, yeah, you know, people coming in with 3 dead fish, that's a problem, you know? Yeah. But what was happening is he's fishing a Carolina rig, and this gentleman couldn't feel the bite. And by the time he felt the fish had already swallowed the hook. He was gut hooking them, and it was a bad situation. And I worked really hard with him to develop the right rod and go through and figure out exactly. And, you know, about 3 weeks later, he calls me up. He goes, hey man, I got to talk to you about this rod. And I said, what's that? He goes, I just want you to know, he said, I've won 2 tournaments now as a result, because I had no dead fish.
Wow.
And that just, honestly, Adam, that spoke volumes to me. And that was just, for me, that was huge. Yeah. That was just like, wow, I through the thing that I'm passionate about, I have been able to help someone. And I think that's the thing. And if you ever look at any of the verbiage on our site and the different things, I mean, that's what we're here for. I mean, that's kind of that is our philosophy. I mean, we build great rods. We're going to build great stuff. But my gosh, we're going to make sure that we get you in the right rod. And we're going to make sure, because there's too many things out there. You know, I remember growing up as a kid, I played tennis, and I played a lot of competitive tennis. And you'd go to the tennis shop, and the pro there would help fit you into a racket. You know, how much top spin do you use? You know, what kind of serve do you have? This is the right racket. You know, this is kind of sweet spot you want. This, that, and the other. There's not a lot of people that can do that with fishing rods. And I feel like that's a real part of our industry that is, you know, you're spending $200 plus on a stick, and it's a guess. Is this the right thing? I don't know. Yeah. You know, and so the greatest part of my job now is that I spend a very large amount of my day on the phone with customers. They call in, I answer the phone, and it's, hey man, I need you to tell me what you're doing. I'm not going to steal your spots. I'm not going to steal your techniques. Tell me what you're doing, and we will fit you in the right rod. If I don't have it, I don't have it. But we usually can work through the different rod series and find the right rod. And it's like I tell people, if I point you in the right direction, I give you your money back. There's no problem with that. So
wow, yeah, I think that's a great mindset, Alex. I mean, putting the customer first, and not only tailoring a fit to a specific rod and figuring out their possible problems with other products, but also listening to their feedback, and then you can take that in your next rod production line. I mean, you're literally listening to your customer to the highest degree, and I think that is lacked, especially with maybe some of the maximum volume companies of rods. You know what I mean?
well, and that's why we've got so one of the some companies don't have different series. A smaller company, it's harder to have different series. For us, I mean, I'm not going to tell you that it's been easy for us to have multiple rod lines. I mean, it's every time you add more rods, it's more SKUs, it's more back end work, it's more it's more parts. A great example is this new rod, this Rumble we got out for bladed jigs. And it has been absolutely, I mean, we haven't been able to keep it in stock this year. Now, part of it's the time of the year that it is, but it took us 2 years to get that rod right. And I just wasn't going to put anything out there. And it's a glass composite rod, and it is absolutely phenomenal. I will put it up against any stick on the market for throwing a bladed jig. And you know what? If you beat me, you beat me. It's fair and square, But it is a phenomenal rod. But adding that rod, it has some different dimensions to it. We had to get a different reel seat in. We had, so there's a lot that goes into trying to figure that out. But I can tell you, we had to have that rod because it was the #1 rod that we were getting requests for. When are you going to have a dedicated rod for that? Yeah. And so kind of the philosophy behind our lines is the ICO series is, to me, and I mean, this is, you take this as a cocky statement if you want, in the $160 price point, is the best rod on the market, in my opinion. Yeah. The reason for that is we actually use a higher quality guide in that rod than what you usually see at that $150, $160 price point. Okay. But our feeling on that is, my feeling is a lot of people don't want to hop into a $250 stick on their first rod. They want to get to know what kind of quality we have, what kind of build. So our ICO series comes out of the gate as an introductory rod. It's mainly general purpose. We've got a few technique specifics in there, but it's a real general purpose type series. Yeah. But we wanted to build a phenomenal rod at that price point, because if that's your first introduction to us, I don't want it to be a dud. Oh. So it's got to be something great to make you want to go, to make you see value in why would I go up. And truthfully, most of our customers are in that Zolo, that 250, and then our Enoch series is above that. We just rolled out the new Oxum series, and it's really cool. So it's black, got the snow camo, urban camo grips on it. So something a little edgier and a little fun for us.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
it's cool.
That'll kind of match some of Jake Whitaker's obsession with camo.
Yeah, oh yeah. I know. Jake came in the shop and he goes, "Oh," and I go, "I know. You got to have a couple of those." Yeah. But it's funny. It's funny to bring that up because Jake, he loves the ICO series. Here he is at Elite Series Pro. I mean, he was fishing a Soul 7, which is our 7-foot medium spinning rod in the ICO series down last year. That's what he won. I think he got 4th or 5th in Florida last year. Skipping a stick. So I mean, he asked him which one he wants. That's what he wants. Now he's got all the different series, but that's one of the things we do that's a little different. We use the same grips across all the series. We use the same kind of reel seats. We do a lot of the same things so that no matter what your price point is, if you move up or down, all of the rods kind of have the same feel.
Sure. Okay. That makes a lot of sense to me. I've always, that's something you bring up with Elite Series Pro running kind of the lowest end model that you guys have. Yeah. And that's a common thing, I think, in the industry that a lot of people don't realize. You don't necessarily need the highest end rod. Now, there are some uses and situations where it makes sense, in my opinion, to have some of those high end rods. But I'm someone like, I would say, and I'm not tied to any rod company. So I have, gosh, I'm going to probably say 7 or 8 different companies.
A smorgasbord?
So many, and it's funny, like my jerkbait rod is an $100 price point rod, and I throw jerkbait a lot, and I like it, and it feels good to me, and I don't feel like I need anything more than that. I have 3 of those rods, and it's just what it feels like. But then there's situations where it's like, I'm throwing a jig and I want to feel everything with it, I might jump up that price point, a drop shot rod, those kinds of things. So it depends on the angler. And I appreciate that you're not trying to upsell people and say, hey, look, this is what the Elite Series is using. Yeah.
No, I want you to, at the end of the day, I want you in the right rod. And if you're telling me, if you're telling me you're looking for ultimate sensitivity and you don't really have a budget, I'm going to point you in this direction. I mean, and a lot of those customers kind of already know that's where they want to go up into our top of the line rod. But, the guy that's looking at me saying that, I really want a rod for X. And I'm like, man, I'm just going to be honest with you. You don't need a $300 rod for throwing a spinnerbait. You just don't, I mean, I'm a terrible salesman at that point,
You're messing up, Alex. You can't be doing that.
I mean, when they hit it, it's like a frog, when they hit it, I mean, come on, it's just certain things that, and that's a great thing is, a lot of times, I have customers that don't believe me when I look at them and say, yeah, I think you need to get in an ICOS. Well, why? I mean, that's your $160 rod. Yeah, I know, but I think it's the right rod for you. And I shock a lot of customers telling them things like that. And I don't just do it but our best-selling crankbait rod is in the ICOS line. And it's a phenomenal crankbait rod, and it's just, it is what it is. We base our costs for each series. We have fixed margins. We look at trying to make the same amount so we're a little different probably than a lot of companies in that regard. We base the price off of the components that we put into that particular rod. Most of the time it's driven by the rod blank. And, we look to make the same type of money on each rod series. So that frees me up to be able, when I'm worried only about what my margin is, and that frees me up. I'm not tied. I don't have to try and sell more of this one because I make more money on it. At the end of the day, we've got a level playing field for us. So I'm free to offer anything that we have. So.
Yeah. Well, no, and that's a really good point, Alex. And kind of to explain that, guys, the margin a little bit more, and correct me if I'm wrong on this. This is kind of going back to stuff I learned in kind of business school and this kind of a thing. But like, I've always thought this in the rod industry is that when you have a company that has multiple series, when there is a high-end series of rod, in my opinion, this is just a thought that I've always had, is it similar to like the airline industry having business seats up front, or flying not private, but is flying business versus flying economy.
Sure.
Whereas where the airline industry is making money is on the business seats, and the economy seats being so cheap, that is just basically covering its cost of that. And then where the real income is on that. So I've always thought, and I could be wrong here, but I've always thought, I wonder if that $500 rod is way outpriced and they're not getting that many sales on it, but their $100 rod, the volume's going, right? So I'm just curious, is that standard or where do you see margins fluctuate?
What I would tell you, man, is I think it depends on the company. Yeah. I do think, I've never been behind the scenes at the big names. I haven't worked for those guys. I don't know what their pricing structures, and I don't know how they do some of that stuff. I know a lot of smaller companies, and I know they probably price similar. They may price based on some of the same concepts. But I will tell you that, like for ours, the quality of the grips changes. Like the grips that we have on our Enoch series are a just absolutely incredible cork grip. They come out. We have a company out of Canada that makes them for us, and they have no filler in them whatsoever. They're actually we actually discovered that company when we were building some fly rods for another company, and they were having their cork grips, and those grips can stay wet literally all day long, and they don't fall apart. They don't have any issues. I mean, and you'll put them up and they dry out. You go fishing with them, they don't fall apart. They're phenomenal. So they cost us more. I mean, that costs us more. Guides a little more. The material in the blank is a little bit more. The technology that's being used is a little more. So in some cases, and in a lot of cases, there is definitely more cost involved.
Sure.
And then the other things that you have to look at too are like warranty programs and warranty policies and stuff.
Yeah.
Some companies automatically have a one-time replacement. Well, if there's a one-time replacement included in the cost, or if you can get a replacement for no charge, you've paid for that replacement. I mean, come on, let's be real now.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
You
And
know,
there's a breakage rate, right? Like they're going to know how
yes.
many they're going to lose. They're going to
That's
know.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, most companies do. I mean, that's a great question. You know, I mean, we see less than 1%. We see, so out of our rods, I know we see less than 1% breakage in the field.
Wow.
Now keep in mind that includes rod locker lids, car doors, you know,
Yeah. So,
bad shipping tubes.
yeah. Yeah.
You know, not just failures. Usually, defects and failures are caught. I'll be honest. Most of the time, defects and failures are caught in the shop because we flex a rod at least 3 times solid before it comes. I mean, I'm talking about loading it up before it goes out the door. Because quite honestly, if I put a bad product out there, that costs me money, and I'm not really into losing money. So
I got you. I got
yeah.
you. That's awesome that you guys flex each rod before it goes out
Yep.
the door.
Yeah, we flex them as soon as they come in. As soon as we get the blanks, we take them and we flex them. We flex them after they go out for wrapping, and then we flex them before they're the final package. And we so there's some processes there that have opportunity that something could have happened that we would not have known about.
Yep.
So we flex the blanks at any of those points just to make sure that nothing's happened to them. So
Gotcha. Very cool.
you know,
Well,
and occasionally I'll say this:
yeah.
occasionally a dead duck gets out the door.
Oh, yeah.
You know, but it's pretty rare.
That happens with everyone. You know, it's going
That's
to
right.
happen with everything. So, uh, very cool. And you kind of touched on building rods for that fly rod company, those kinds of situations. You know, you touched on a part of your business off the air where you are doing private label services for other companies.
Correct.
Not to get into any specifics on that, but how does that process work? And is that just a way for you to diversify income wise?
Yeah. So what that does is it does a few different things for us as a company. I mean, it helps us levelize our workflow throughout the year.
Mhm.
You know, you had asked me too about if we had a busy season, and
Yeah.
a private label really helps with our with our work level.
Gotcha.
So essentially, if you have like a small company, sometimes we deal with small companies that just can't handle the volume because they've grown. Sometimes we have, you know, like a custom builder who has decided that they just want to keep 5 models. You know, they're always getting asked for a 7-foot medium, heavy, and heavy, and they just want to keep those in stock. So we build up a small stock of those, and they have those, and then they custom build everything oddball past that.
Gotcha.
You know, we've done private label for an individual store. Let's say you got a store in a lake, and it's a jig lake, and they have a custom, you know, Joe's Tackle Shop jig rod, and they just get 30 or 40 of those a year. You know what I mean? And we've got stuff that goes from, you know, companies doing hundreds of rods, 1,000 rods a year with us to, you know, all the way down to Joe's Tackle, who buys 30, 40 rods at a pop. And, you know, that's his stock for the year, and he's good, you know, because it's something unique that he can stock. So
Very cool.
Nice.
Nice.
Yep, and we price everyone out. The one thing I do say, we don't knock anybody off. If you come to me and you have a rod that you really, really love, and you say, hey, I want it to look just like this, I'm going to steer you in a little bit different direction and get it to look a little different. Because I feel like, you know, we talked a little about this offline, was I really believe in brands. I believe in building your own brand. And I think that's a very important thing to do. And I'm going to do everything I can not to try and or well, we'll put it this way, to try and help you get in that direction if you come to us to get a rod.
Yeah, it's a good mindset to have, and I think it's important building your own brand. It's what you have to back behind. You know,
Correct. Absolutely.
Awesome. And you know, kind of going into that and more into the business side.
Yep.
You know, you had mentioned that your different kind of streams or getting products out, it's basically direct to consumer as well as through, you know, some dealers. Now, you brought up a story that I'd love for you to share on the air, but with as far as big box stores, you know,
Sure.
what made you go direct to consumer or that process, or do you want to talk a little bit through what had happened?
Sure. So, kind of some background on that, and just a little bit more than I think of what I had shared for you, where we came from. So, like I told you, we started we started that Zolo series in 2012, and a buddy of mine was tasked with starting a new tackle business for a very large a large store here in South Carolina. and they're great dealers still with us, and they were just getting into the fishing tackle. He calls me up and says, "Man, I really want to get your rods in the store, but you got to have a production line of rods." So within about 6 weeks, we had a production line of rods design. Wow. Yeah, that launched us into the world of dealers. Because now we're like, well, we got everything for those guys. We'll just start looking for more dealers.
Exactly.
And yeah, so things started growing. So that was a huge boost for us. And that really did change the trajectory of ALX Rods. Because at that point, there was a lot of just custom building. And I was kind of torn as to what we wanted to do and how I wanted to move forward with some stuff. And that just kind of was like, look, I can't miss this opportunity. Again, you got to kind of look at things. And, like you mentioned earlier. And so that started that trajectory. And so we started growing. We started getting little dealers here. We got an outside sales rep, and that went so-so. And, things got interesting. Well, then we did iCast. And, we had a bit of a Cinderella story. The guys from Cabela's walked by, and we just kind of just hit it off really well. They liked what we had. And first thing we knew, within about 6 months, we were in 15 stores across the Southeast.
Wow.
And yeah, we had to ramp up really fast. We weren't ready for that. And that was a big change for us. And that relationship went on really, really well. Cabela's was a wonderful, wonderful store to work with. Contacts there were great people, real straight shooters. And I really enjoyed working with them. It was great for our brand. It got our name out to a whole new, different group of people. I wish they would have carried some different models. But I kind of learned that how some of the big boxes operate is they look at national sales, not local sales. So that kind of made me understand why everybody also now has certain models, because it's what they want. That's what they wanted to see.
I see.
And at least from my perspective, that's what I was seeing.
Yeah.
And and it like I said, it went really well. And what a lot of people don't know is what the terms of the industry and the business are like. So when you do business with a big store like that, there's a lot involved with it. You've got to sell product, they get a discount, but then on top of that, they got a discount for marketing. Then they got another discount for this, another discount for this. So there's all these little chipaways after just what you quote as your wholesale price.
Yeah.
And we were in a really good place. We had 2 warranty programs. We compensated Cabela's for warranties. They, if you bought a rod from them, you could take it back to them. If you didn't buy it from them, you came to us. Mm-hmm. So it worked really, really well. It was a great program. Well, then Bass Pro Shops bought Cabela's. And what basically happened was we were a 60-day term company. We were 60-day terms with Cabela's. So that means from the date that we invoiced them, they had 60 days to pay their invoice. Yep. And so I had product out. We're a small business. We've got product out for 2 months. This may be thousands and thousands of dollars because there's no cap on that. And we're financing that, essentially. I mean, not financing as in borrowing money, but that's our money out that we don't have back in the bank.
For a period of time. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we saw with Bass Pro Shops really changed the business for us, and I'm real candid about it because the path that we're on now. I mean, I'm not going to say that I'd never be object to working with those guys again, but what our experience was that we got an email and it said that guess what? Now you're on 90-day terms, or we just won't buy any rods the rest of the. Essentially we're on 90-day terms. If you don't accept it, we just won't purchase anything the rest of this year.
Wow.
And that was like a June, July kind of thing. And we're like, okay, well, that just added 30 days. I guess we're going to have to accept this.
Yeah.
Felt a little over the barrel. They were really, because of the big transition, and I understand why. And please don't take this as me being salty. It's business. It is what it is.
It's the model.
Yeah, it is what it is. And we knew some things were probably going to change. So we were kind of bracing for it, because every year you redo your vendor terms. And that's the discounts that they get for marketing, the discounts they get for this, whatever it may be. And just candidly, the relationship that we had, where our sales were with them, they couldn't guarantee what the sales would be. They wouldn't guarantee more stores, less stores. We really didn't know. There were fixed costs associated every month with doing business with them because of electronic invoicing and those types of transactions. It was possible that we could have actually lost money doing business with those guys.
Wow.
And so we had to stand back and say, you know what, this is a chunk of money. I mean, they were our #1 customer, without a doubt. Our largest chunk of sales was Cabela's. even over Tackle Warehouse, just because of the volume that they had in stores. And we stood back and we just said, what are we going to do about this? And I said, well, I think we just got to start selling direct.
Yeah.
And so we backpedaled. We actually rejected the dealer terms. We shut everything down and just said, see ya. And it was mutual. I don't think they were really planning on moving forward as well. And but I went on ahead and pulled the plug and just said, you know what, this isn't going to work for us. This just doesn't work. There were a couple terms that came in that they wanted us to pay some money to help with signage in the stores that we were already in. For rebranding the stores. And for me, that just didn't work at the time. And so I moved on and said, well, what are we going to do now? So now we've kind of settled on a hybrid model that works really, really well for us. We do have dealers, and we have some absolutely incredible dealers. We've got Tackle Warehouse, we've got Tackle Trap, we've got American Legacy up in Indiana, we got Palmetto State Armory in South Carolina. We've got several other small dealers, Summerlin Outdoors over in Columbus, Georgia, and a handful of others. And some of those guys, we've got like Becker's Tackle up in Idaho, and a few others. And those guys are absolutely awesome. They know the product. They can sell the product like we can. They take care of their customers. They have very high repeat clientele. And so we continue to work with them. But that small amount of dealers is not going to float us. Sure. So what do? And we sunk a bunch of money into our website, which was a really big chunk.
Looks really I said I really like the website.
Thank you. Yeah. We spent a lot of time and put a lot into looking at flows and how to put information about it. Then on top of that, so we got that taken care of. The next step was to start doing more videos, getting more information out. In fact, this past year, the big thing that we did was a rod, an online rod selection tool, and it goes way past anything that I've seen. It is not a filter. You know how most websites have like a filter? You can filter by length, by cost.
Sure.
Okay. This is going to say, hey, what's your name? You're going to say Adam. You're going to put your email in it. And then it's going to say, okay, Adam, are you in a kayak or are you in a bass boat? You're going to tell me. Yep. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Well, are you a co-angler? Are you looking for a technique rod? Are you looking for a set of rods? What are you looking for? And you answer that. And you're going to say crankbait rod. Okay. Well, now we're going to start. What kind of crankbaits? So we tried to mimic the conversation that I have with customers when they call in and they ask. We tried to mimic that, because if at 2 o'clock in the morning you're sitting there looking at your phone, I'm not answering the phone. Sorry, I'm asleep. So we've tried to do that, and what we found is that hybrid model works really well for us. We have plenty of customers. Talked to a gentleman today. He called in trying to get the right rod, and he buys all of his rods from American Legacy. And you know what? I'm not going to steal their sales. I mean, they're a great dealer. They get us to a whole bunch. They're a great partner. And same with like Tackle Trap and even Tackle Warehouse. I mean, those guys are going to, customers call in, I'm going to help them, and then I'm going to send them right back to where they came from. But the guy that doesn't have something nearby, I mean, hey, man, I can shove a rod to tube. We can stick a rod to tube and ship it to you just as easy and just as fast too. So, so we use that hybrid model.
Yeah, no, I like the model, and it diversifies you as well from that standpoint of things. And then a couple of points on that. I guess number one to me, by creating a incredible website with the concept of having someone go through and mimic that conversation that you're having. That's an automated process, right? You're going to be able to possibly sell rods, which I'm sure that happens anyways, right? Like I go on, I know exactly where I want to click. I don't have to call you, but it's just another process that makes someone understand what they're purchasing. Right. And it's automated. And then, my question kind of in regards to the dealer versus the online model with COVID this last year, with the future of kind of fishing rod sales in general, because it totally can be a touchy-feely thing. And that's how I felt in the beginning purchasing rods. And then now, kind of like you said, probably to a lack of the industry doing this, I'll be like, listen, I kind of want to try that Rand's rod. Boom, click the button. You know what I mean? Because I know I'm going to use it, or I'm going to decide then. But like, I do a lot of my rods purchases online. I don't go to, and part of it being in Colorado, I don't have phenomenal things,
honestly, that's the thing that really stinks is there's not a tackle shop on every corner anymore. When I was a kid, there was always you could go and see tackle shops and you could see a lot of the stuff.
Yeah.
And the problem is now, there isn't a lot of small tackle shops. They're maybe not going to have what you're looking for. I mean, truthfully, a lot of our dealers don't even carry even the big fish for us is Tackle Warehouse. They have they carry the largest volume for us as a dealer individually, but they don't carry every rod series, or they don't carry every rod. They carry all our series, but they don't carry every model, is what I should say.
Yeah.
And so we've got some niche stuff in there that's just really awesome. And it's just not a big seller, so they don't want to have it sitting because they don't know how long it's going to be before they turn it.
Yeah.
But because they're there to make money too. And but yeah, I think, Adam, too, that's where I think a big part for us, it really comes into play with that helping customers. I talked to you about the tennis racket. I use that tennis racket, or even a golf club analogy.
Yeah.
Golf guys still go to a golf shop. They still get their clubs custom fitted. They still are not, a lot of guys, like if you buy a set of pings, you're not buying a set of pings that don't fit you. You're not buying them off the rack,
Yeah.
and or some of the other brands, you just don't. And you're having somebody help you get in the right thing. And it's a big dollar purchase. I mean, it's why is that not in fishing rods more? I don't understand it. Yeah. So, let's take you're out west and, you want to see an ALX rod, but there's nobody near you.
No, absolutely not.
What are you going to do? And you know what? If I can talk with you about it, and I can listen to the way that you're fishing, and I can listen to you, I compare you to other customers. I know what works for our other customers. I know what works for me. I know what works for our pro staffers. Why can I not share that information with you and help make sure that that's the right rod for you? And to me, that's the ultimate part of customer service. I mean, is if I can listen to your needs and I can really help identify it, I've saved you time, I've saved you money, I've saved you frustration, I've saved you effort. And you know what? If that means you got to talk on the phone with me for a half hour, sometimes you just got to deal with nasty things,
Come on now.
No, I'm joking. But I mean, usually it's a great conversation because we always end up sharing a few stories. And, but what we find is that after we have that talk, and I don't know all fishing, I'm not a smallie guy. I don't know smallies.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I've got a couple pro staffers that are very good with smallies. Yeah. And if you're a smallie guy and you need help, and I've learned a lot from them, and I can help work through the majority of stuff. But when you throw me some oddball thing that they're doing up on Erie right now, I'm going to have to make a phone call. And usually I can get a phone call into you within a day. That same day, I can have one of the guys that I work with. Yep. He will call you and say, "Hey man, tell me what time I need to call this guy and what's the best time." Very and cool. They call that customer and they talk through them as to which rods are the best rods for them. So,
well, that's a great way to utilize pro staff as well, right? Yeah. That's the whole purpose, is to learn from them, as well as the amount of time they're spending on the water, and then also utilize them to get in front of customers. And in your case, a direct call, that's pretty neat. That'd be a warm, fuzzy feeling from a potential customer.
Yeah, I think that's something different that we kind of do. I've had some customers who just really couldn't believe that we actually did that. But I mean, it's, we want to take care of it. Again, and selfishly, if I get you in the right rod and you never had to go to a store to feel it, you're probably most likely going to come back to us for your second rod. But what we found is that a lot of the time now with our repeat customers, I don't even have to have a phone call. They'll drop me an email and they'll just say, "Hey man, here's what I'm doing. This is what I'm using. This is how I'm fishing. What rod do I need to get?" And shoot them a link, and there you go. This is the rod that you need to get. This is what it sounds like. Or I got some questions for you. And they're busy, I'm busy, and they just shoot me an email, and they may be at 8 o'clock at night thinking about it. And my wife fusses at me, but sometimes at 8 o'clock at night, I'm answering that email.
Well, I think we're all guilty of that a little bit sometimes. That's good.
That's right.
Oh man. Well, we'll get geared towards wrapping things up here, but sure. What do you guys plan on being at? Kind of with COVID, it's real goofy, but any fishing shows this year, the classic, anything like that? What's the outlook for you guys?
I have no idea at this point, man. Every show that we do has been canceled this year. So I don't know what's going to be happening. With us being a heavier emphasis on direct to consumer, we've kind of pulled away from doing ICAST. Sure. A lot of people don't realize how incredibly expensive ICAST is, but the last time we ran ICAST, I think I figured out that it cost us about $7,500 for a 10 by 10 booth. which is that's steep. So I got to see some return on that, you know. You know, I can spend $7,500. You know, I can spend $7,500 a lot of ways. Now, you know, when we did it, we created a great relationship with Cabela's that one year. So, you know, great things can come from it. Absolutely. So, you know, truthfully for us, we've been growing so fast that honestly, we were kind of pulling back and not wanting to hit a home run like that again, because we're where we are. As for the Classic, you know, we've done the Classic every year. I think the last 4 or 5 years. We didn't do Houston. We were really thinking strongly about doing Fort Worth, especially now that it's in June. But I'm going to be honest, it's going to be probably an April decision before we see what's going on. I just want to see what the landscape looks like with everything with COVID and restrictions and all of that good stuff. So we're just going to kind of play it by ear. I'm not going to say no. I've got some great people in that area that would really help add a lot of value for us to the show. So, you know, and plus that whole area is just a phenomenal fishing area. And it would be great for us to get, you know, Texas is a tough market. There's a ton of rod companies in Texas, and they have a lot of loyal following. And we're not real strong in Texas. And I'd love to get some Texas people fishing the rods a little bit more.
You're from Texas, jump on the train.
There you go.
All right, Alex, 1 second here. I gotta. Looks like my computer's about to die. For some reason, it wasn't plugged in. I don't want to just end the stream.
Yeah, we don't need that.
We got enough technical difficulties.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. But I think that's a good mindset. I think it's been interesting talking to different folks in the industry on their thought process on shows going forward. You know, how much is this really going to benefit us? I think there's obviously great networking opportunities there. But when you're talking about $7,500, and I heard the same thing, someone told me the other day, yeah, it cost me $10,000 to go to ICAST. It's like, yep. That's a lot of money to be spending on something that it's, you know, where else could I spend that money to grow my business?
Yeah, and I think for us there'll be a time that we're back. Just the past few years haven't been right for us, and I've got kind of a little different philosophy. I don't believe that we've got to do it the same way that everybody else in the industry does. So I have a little bit different attitude towards it, and I think it comes back to, you know, kind of that whole entrepreneurial, you know, you got to do what works for you. You got to do what works for your business and given your situation, and you got to listen to your cues. And, you know, when we're hearing the comments that make me think we need to go, we're going to go again. And until then, we probably won't go, but we're going to do things that are different. You know, it's like the online rod finder. It's like redesigning our website. It's, you know, it's just paying attention to what's going on around you and listening. You got to, and that's probably the biggest advice I'd give to anybody in this industry that's wanting to do, or anybody in the fishing world, you know, whether it's a bait company, you're wanting to go pro, whether you're wanting to be sponsored, but man, you got to do what's right. If it feels forced, there's a reason for it. You know, listen to those cues. Don't ignore the things going on around you, because they tell a story and you're feeling that way. Listen to your gut. You know, you're feeling that way for a reason.
Yeah. No, I think that's great advice. And one of my last questions is always, you know, what's your biggest piece of advice to someone who's looking to get into the industry? And that is super, super unique too, because man, you don't hear that all the time. And I think it is so important. And the more that I'm growing up, just as an individual, as well as with what I'm following in the fishing industry and everything in life, and watching tournament guys too, man, it's all about what works for them. Right. Yep. What works for them and following their instincts. And that is so applicable to so many things in life.
One of the things that I'll even throw out there that I think is really interesting, because we've worked with quite a few different pros. You know, I mean, Jake isn't the only elite we've ever sponsored, and we've worked with different ones over time. And what I've found is, outside of the little bit of specialty that they have, you know, and they may have one particular bait that's just really their thing, and so they need a rod just for that. Yeah. The guys that travel, from what I see, tend to like a lot of general purpose stuff because they never know what they're going to run into. Mm-hmm. But I also see them fishing a lot of the same stuff in a lot of the same places because that's their strength. and they're playing to that strength. You know, if they've never fished a drop shot, they're not going to go fishing it, you know, when a derby's on the line, you know, and I even see that with the opens level, you know, even down, you know, into some of your lower level stuff. I mean, you know, and the same thing with with running a business. You know, play your strengths. You know, do what it is. And one thing I will add in with that the biggest thing that I see as a whole is build your brand. I mean, that is just absolutely important. I mean, we see this with the whole YouTube thing and the Instagram thing, and everybody wanting to be, but you got to build your brand. And if you're building a bait company, whether you're building a rod company, don't rush your laurels on everybody else, man. You got to build your name. It's like I told you, nobody's ever bought an ALX rod, regardless of what it's been built with, regardless of what's been used on it. And have they ever been sent to that company that made that part? They've always dealt with us. You're buying an ALX rod, you're going to deal with ALX, and that's how you build your brand, and that's what's going to get you through, and that's what's important. And whether it's fishing, whether it's business, you've got to do that and make sure that you create an image with your brand that's consistent with something that you can do yourself. You know, I'm not a rapper. I'm not going to rap in our advertisements. You know, I mean, it's just not a fit, you know, so you got to do what works for you.
It's great advice. Great advice. And so kind of as we're wrapping things up here, always I ask guests that come on the show, top or personal best, largemouth, smallmouth, spotted bass, where you caught it, and then what you caught it on.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess start with largemouth.
Well, let's start with smallie because that's easy. I've never caught one. I told you I'm not a smallie guy. I'm absolutely honest about that one.
Zero. Appreciate the honesty.
That's my smallie right there. Okay. So we'll go there. I already told you about my spot. That was that 4 1/4 up there on Russell. And it was on some kind of a worm. I don't remember what it was. I honestly want to say, I think it was a Carolina rig.
Okay.
But it was about a 4 1/4 spot up on Lake Russell. And that was years ago. And my biggest largemouth was 9.5.
Ooh.
And that was down on El Salto. I had a wonderful trip a few years back. It's a sad story, but a great story at the same time. My uncle had passed away, and in his will, he had left a trip to El Salto for my cousins and my uncle. And my uncle's actually in the industry as well. And so we all went down there, the 4 of us, and fished El Salto. And it was an absolutely incredible trip. I had 3 9s, I think. I never broke a double digit, but I had 3 9s. One was 9.5. I can't tell you how many 7s and 8s I had. It was incredible. So I need to go back bad.
Absolutely, man. That's one of those dream places, right? For so many cool things. What did you catch that fish on?
That was on a big 10 or 12-inch Texas rig. Big ribbon, just plain old ribbon tail worm, Texas rig with a 1 ounce weight. So
wow.
Yep.
That's really cool. El Salto. I don't think I've heard anyone PB on the show yet has been from another country. So that's really
that was cool, man. It was an incredible trip. I mean, the first fish I caught down there was on the top water, and it was 3.5 pounds, and I thought he was about 6. And I was just like, all right, these fish have been drinking tequila because they're mean, man.
That's pretty good. That's awesome. Well, Alex, I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. You know, like you said, especially this time of the year, everyone's looking at getting rods, that kind of time of the year. So appreciate you taking the time out. It's been an incredible show. I think a lot of people have a lot to learn from what you're doing. And how can people follow along with ALX Rods and everything that you guys have going?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we're on the gram, we're on Facebook, you know, we're everywhere, just at ALX Rods. I think on Instagram we're ALX_rods.
Okay.
So, you know, but if you put in ALX Rods, we'll come up real simple. You know, so we're there. We're on YouTube as well. I've got a whole series of videos that we do on different types of aspects of our rods. Nice little 3 and 4 minute type videos, you know, whether it's about split grip or fiberglass versus graphite, or, you know, different things that I just try to educate about what we're using and what we're we're doing. Try to be really transparent. One of our most popular, we do a lot of blog posts and stuff. One of the most popular ones, I've got a list of everything that where we source all of our components from. So we build everything in Aiken, South Carolina. And just kind of to give a quick shout out to the people that work for us. I mean, we've got three folks in shop, along with my wife Jennifer, that build all the rods and do everything. And then we've got 7 contractors that work from home, and those folks are just incredible. They really take quality. They understand what kind of quality we need to put out and how important it is, and they make sure that every day that stuff gets done. So that's a huge part, and I don't want to forget those folks when we start talking about the company and what we do for our customers. So
awesome, Alex. Well, it's very noble to do, and I appreciate everything that you've had to say here. And guys,
thanks.
check out ALX Rods. I will have those descriptions, all the different links there in the description of the show. So,
thanks,
Alex. Hey, have a good rest of your evening, and
all right, man.
Hope to see you on the road sometime out traveling.
All right. Yeah, man. If you're ever down this way, give us a shout. We'll get together and we'll hit dinner.
All right, sounds good, Alex. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks, man.
Yep. See ya.